If I was a teacher and you were in my class, you'd be an A student. A wonderful jazz girl. She has a radio show now she's co-hosting. And she does so good on it. It's, we were talking after and I said, we should start a radio show called Out of This World with Jazz and Candace, all about strange stories and happenings. I'd tune in and listen. We should.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, just interview people that have had really weird things. Speaking of weird things, I'll just tell you this one thing. I stopped by the graveyard the other day because I never go because I always have Ken or somebody with me and they never want to go to the graveyard. I can't understand why. So I went to the graveyard to see my dead peeps and there's 6 graves. They're all close, like all together. Now, I haven't been there in 10 years, and all the cups, of course, are grown over, but one wasn't. I find this really hard to believe it. It was totally open, you could see the water, so somebody's obviously put flowers there, but there's nobody left living that knows these people. So I'm trying to figure that out. That's a strange happening. And it was my mother's grave. And I had just written a poem called Mother, How Strange. That funeral, that graveyard holds a special liking for me because when I was in school, I didn't do very good in math and I had to go to summer school. But they never really checked, so I would drive out to the graveyard and there was a nice little pool there you could sit beside and smoke a cigarette and read a book and then, oh, good, class is over, I'll go home.
Did you pass?
Yeah, and then, I did, no, I failed math, and then I ended up working in the financial services industry for like 20 years. Can you believe that? And I failed math. Good God. And I hate numbers. And now, I must have to have something to do with numbers, and I hate them, and now my favorite puzzle is Sudoku, all numbers. Don't get it. Now on to the meat and potatoes of our, well actually I should say the baked Alaska, the creme de la creme of our afternoon. We have 3 wonderful features. We have Margret Thompson, we have Richard Olafson, we have Carol Sokoloff. Please everybody, give them a really warm RCLAS welcome. Shake the foundations. I was hoping there would be more people here, but I do see the best folks have turned up. We're going to start with Margret Thompson. Tell you a little bit about Margret. Margret came to Canada in 1967. She taught English in Seychelles and then spent 20 years in Fort St. James, where she was the senior English teacher in the high school and also taught university transfer courses for the College of New Caledonia. She taught other people how to write for years before she began to take her own writing seriously in the early 1990s and self-published a collection of prose and poetry. Then in 1996, her collection of short stories, Hide and Seek, was published by Caitlin Press. And her first children's book, the YA historical novel Eyewitness, Ronsdale Press 2000, won a BC Book Award in 2000.
Wow.
That's no mean feat, boy. That's terrific. She wrote another children's book for Fox Winter in 2003, which is based on a real encounter with an injured fox in her own backyard. This was followed by a collection of travel essays, Knocking on the Moonlit Door, New West 2004, and a further essay collection, Adrift on the Ark, Our Connections to the Natural World, which was published by Brindle and Glass. Can somebody flip that thing? Flip that switch. Oh, never mind. God did it. Wonderful. We must. Hello, peoples. Now don't be cantankerous, my ghosts. Her first novel for adults, The Cuckoo's Child, Brindle and Glass, was published in 2014, so that's her newest book. And she has also contributed to 5 anthologies. She joined the Federation of BC Writers in 1992, served on the board for a number of years, and as president for 2 terms. She is also a member of the Writers Union of Canada. Margret has credentials that are just stellar, so I'm looking forward to hear her read. Please come up, Margret. Are you a lot taller than me? Shall I move this? I'm afraid to touch it now. Just check here. Once you get up here, we'll check that if I need to move it up a bit.
Just about right, I would think.
Yes, and you gotta get close to it.
Yeah, so I gather.
Unless you got a loud voice like me.
Actually, I'd like. Can you hear this?
I'm gonna turn it
No.
up a bit.
Right. Checking. Still not there. There.
There
It
we go,
needs to
there
be a
we go.
bit
Yeah,
higher.
there. That's perfect. Yep, take it up. Yeah, it's ready to go. We're running with
I think so.
It's not quite as thick, it's just...
Okay, I think I'll start by making an apology for my voice, which is not quite the operatic instrument it used to be. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's just old age. However, I'll do my best. I feel a little bit like the token prose writer in this assembly. Everybody's been talking poetry ever since I arrived, so I feel like the odd one out. Never mind. I don't mind reading prose. Okay, I was said to be the feature novelist. As you've heard, I've written a lot of other things, and novels are rather low on the list. However, everybody can be an expert in their own novel. I won't claim to be the novel guru, but I am the expert in my own book. When you admit to writing a novel to people of your acquaintance, almost inevitably the response is, what's it about? And there are really two ways of answering that question. The first one is to give a list of characteristics, abstractions. In my own case, the novel is about loss, grief, identity, family, restoration. But you can see when you answer in this way, you retreat into the abstract when what you're really talking about is something very concrete. You find yourself talking about exploring themes, about things in the book symbolizing other things, about metaphors, about themes running through the narrative, which isn't usually the sort of reply that people want. The other way to go is to try and give a summary of the plot. If you've ever written a summary of an entire book, you know that it's not an easy task. When you do it verbally, talking to somebody, the summary tends to peter out into disclaimers. Things like, well, that's just part of it, or, well, you'll have to read it to get the real feel. And you're left with the feeling yourself that you're probably wasting your time on an idiotic enterprise. It's done it again. There are gremlins in here. It's sagged.
There we are,
There we go.
We're back.
We're back.
Sort of.
Sort of. Are we back?
We're back.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're not fully back.
The important thing, I think, to remember is that the novel is a story. You're telling a story. It's a slice of life. I think I've lost it again, haven't I?
It's just weird.
Not you, but like
It's a slice of life, or of many lives interwoven, because we don't live in vacuums.
There we go. Now you're back.
Yes. One of the things that I had sort of worked out when I was writing the novel is that writing a novel is about the closest you can get to playing God without causing any of the actual harm and suffering that that phrase usually implies. The novelist creates a world and populates it with characters that resonate with readers because they are human, even if they live in a galaxy far, far away. The author causes conflict, collisions, manipulates fate in the very same way that the gods interfered from Mount Olympus just because they could, and without very much concern for the consequences. For the purpose of my story, I created Lily Alverson. She's a high school teacher of science. She works in Seashelt. She's married to an up-and-coming artist called Neil. Her background is very like mine. We share the same chronology. She was born in the same year I was. She grew up in wartime England. She immigrated to Canada. But she's not me. I simply used those details to give her a convincing background. What I was interested in was loss and identity. So I filled her life